Good
job remembering.
I did not say that. I'm excited that you guys are all here, and welcome to our second summer camp. No, this will be our third summer camp event, correct? Is that correct, Kate?
This is our second.
This is our second, that's right. Our second summer camp event that we call No Horsing Around with Megan Cacchio. So let's start with a word of prayer. Let us pray. O sweet maker of all, we ask your blessing today on all of your creatures, the large and the small. May they live peacefully in praise of you. Bless us all to love your creation and revere its sacredness. We ask this blessing in the name of the one who was, is, and always will be our creator, to whom every creature belongs. Amen. Kate, would you like to introduce our counselor, our camp counselor of the day?
I would love to.
Great.
Wait, are you doing the theme song first or the introduction first?
I think we were doing the introduction and then the theme song.
Okay. So Megan Cacchio, you want to wave, Megan, so they know who you are. There's Megan. She's a longtime congregation member, and before COVID attended chapel nearly every Sunday. And with her husband, Patrick, her preschooler, or now preschooler, Madeline, and her older daughter, Mabel. Want to wave, Mabel? She attends Trinity School in Durham. And even if you haven't talked to Megan, you probably have talked to Mabel, because she is great daddy during snack time before Sunday school. Megan is a graduate of Duke University and a huge Blue Devil fan and a sports fan in general. She's an enthusiastic horse expert, having medaled in the Junior Olympics in horse jumping and having trained horses on her farm in Rougemont. And correct me, Megan, if I'm saying anything that's incorrect.
That was amazing, Kate. I didn't send you any of that. That was all great. Thank you.
And I've had the pleasure of being in Megan's Life Together group this past year, and have discovered how she has an unlimited kindness towards the entire world and a deep thoughtfulness about what it means to be a Christian. And I'm so blessed to have her as a friend and to share this journey that we call parenthood. So I feel really lucky to know you, Megan. Thank you for everything you have to share with the congregation, and let's give her a round of applause. Okay, now we can watch her, that was the sweet part. Now we can watch the silly theme song. I have Craig here helping me, making sure I don't forget anything. Oops. Oh, I'm moving the wrong thing. Thank you for your patience.
Hello, I'm Mr. Ed. A horse is a horse, of course, and no one can talk to a horse, of course. That is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Ed. Go right to the source and ask the horse, who'll give you the answer that you'll endorse. He's always on a steady course. Talk to Mr. Ed. People yakety-yak a streak and waste your time of day, but Mr. Ed will never speak unless he has something to say. A horse is a horse, of course, and this one will talk till his voice is hoarse. You never heard of a talking horse? Well, listen to this. I am Mr. Ed.
Does that make anyone other than me feel old? And does anyone not know what that song is? And if you don't know, don't say so, because I might be irritable about that. We will pass it on to you, Megan.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kate, for that wonderful introduction. That was really kind, and I'm very grateful to have you as a friend as well. And I'm grateful to be here with all of you. Duke Chapel has been a very important part of Patrick and I's life, and certainly the girls since they have been born their whole life. So we're very thankful to be a part, and I feel very honored to be here with all of you today and share a little bit about what I do and how I spend most of my time. So when Kate first asked me if I thought I could talk about horses for an hour, I honestly told her that I could talk about horses all day. So I put together some slides to mostly help keep me on track. So hopefully we'll hit the highlights, share some interesting facts. I'll go into a little bit greater detail about what I do, but please feel free to stop me at any time if you have questions or you want me to go into any greater detail. I tried to just kind of do a grand overview and not go off in the weeds too much. And also, so you guys can sort of see some pictures of what I'm talking about. In an ideal situation, we'd have you all out here to the farm so you could see it all firsthand, but I don't think we're quite far enough away from the pandemic for that. But maybe next summer, you can all come out and see the horses. So I am gonna let you all have my screen here. Okay, can everybody see that? Great. Okay. Yes, hopefully Zoom will go away. Okay, great. So, yep, I'm Megan Cacchio. I run MCAM Equestrian LLC out of our farm here. And to show you a little bit about where I got my start, I grew up on my parents' farm outside of Montgomery, Alabama, where my mom taught children to ride horses and my dad ran the farm basically. So this is the Pike Road, Alabama annual 4th of July parade. I would guess this one is about 1989 and this one is 1990. That was about when I started riding on my own. So I started riding regularly when I was 6 years old. And I did my first recognized competition where I started competing against adults when I was 9 years old. I continued riding all through middle and high school. And then between high school and college, I was fortunate enough to be selected for the Junior Olympics. So we qualified throughout the year. And actually during the qualification period, my horse was injured. And so my mom was kind enough to let me ride her horse. So that is my mom's horse there in that picture. We had a 2-week training session outside Atlanta, Georgia, and then all went up to the Lamplight Equestrian Center, which is outside Chicago. And our team was fortunate enough to be the silver medalists. So that's us with the red ribbons up there, getting our silver medals. And then I was the individual bronze medalist. And then I went on to ride and compete throughout my 4 years at Duke, though many advised me against it. And then was able to continue on afterward. And this is the sport of eventing that I did at the Junior Olympics. And while I was at Duke, I switched to the sport of show jumping and decided to focus on show jumping when I graduated. And then in 2011, Patrick and I bought our farm here in Rougemont. So that's a picture of our barn. And I like this picture because that's our barn and that's our house. So I have an 8-foot commute to work every day. But I put 80 miles a day on my car driving my girls to school and activities. So even though I don't have to drive far to work, I do drive a lot. And this is a picture, if you were standing in the barn and looking out, that's our farm. So this is the arena where I practice and train the horses. And then these are all the fields where the horses live. And that's actually Mabel there talking to Dottie, one of our horses. Snatched that moment when she didn't know I was. Oops, let's see. So it's definitely a family affair. This is me and Mabel out riding together. Madeline, our 2-year-old, isn't quite old enough to ride, but she takes the pony out for grass by the playground. And sorry, you guys, I need to move this for all of you. There we go. So that is my husband, Patrick, who is our gardener and makes sure that the horses always have fresh carrots. People always ask me if Patrick rides, and in the 17 years I've known him, he has ridden one time, and he did a great job. I thought he was awesome, and he seemed like he enjoyed it, and then he finished and said, oh, that was great. I don't ever need to do that again. So, so now he is our supporter, and he helps us take care of the horses, but he does not ride. So that, I'm trying to think how, I guess if you can just sort of holler if you have questions, because I'm afraid if I have the videos up, you won't be able to see all the slides. So please feel free to stop me. That's a little bit about me, how we got to be where we are. And now on to a little bit more about horses. So they definitely come in all shapes and sizes. There's about 400 different breeds of horses, with the smallest being the miniature horse. And that's me leading my friend's miniature horse there, all the way up to the draft horse. This is not me, but I would guess this person is about my height. And you can see that those Budweiser Clydesdales are just towering over her. And so they range about size from about 34 inches up to 76 inches. A miniature horse is going to weigh about 150 pounds. Those Clydesdales are going to easily weigh 2,000 pounds. Interesting thing is we don't describe horses in terms of inches or feet. We actually use a unit called hands. And the reason for that, it's believed that horses were domesticated about 5,000 years ago. So people have been talking about and describing horses longer than there has been any sort of standardized tool of measurement for horses. And so people would just stack one hand on top of each other and count how many there were, and that was how tall the horse was. So it's been standardized since then to now be a hand is 4 inches. But in terms of hand, this miniature is going to be about 8.5 hands tall. These Clydesdales are going to be 19 hands tall. And the horses that I ride are typically 16 or 17 hands tall. And then horses usually live 25 to 30 years. The oldest horse to ever live was 62. That was certainly an outlier. So mid to upper 20s would sort of be a typical lifespan. Feeding horses, they eat a lot. So they need to eat about 2% of their weight every day, mostly in hay and grass. So this picture here is a typical load of hay that I get on our trailer. It's about 75 bales, and that lasts us about 3 weeks. So at least once, if not twice a month, I'm going to get a load of hay like that and stack it in the trailer or in the shed, with each of those weighing typically 50 to 60 pounds. So we would feed them 20 pounds of hay per day, and then they get 2 to 5 pounds of grain, which is mostly just their vitamins, minerals, and then the energy that they may need. On a regular basis, they're going to drink 10 gallons of water, but that's really the minimum. When it's hot out like it's been lately, or if they're working, they're going to easily double or maybe even triple that. So all of our horses have 2 5-gallon buckets of water in their stall, and we are rinsing and refilling water buckets all day. And then a lot of people know horses like carrots and apples. Something that not as many people know is that they really like peppermints, and they love bananas, and they will eat the entire thing. You can just hand it to them, peel and all. I'm always careful to take off the little sticker, but they will just eat the whole thing. So it works really well for us. We always have carrots, apples, and bananas for the girls. And once they're a little bit past their prime and the girls don't want them, they go out to the barn. The peppermints I keep in the barn, but they have been known to make their way into the house. They're definitely a favorite of Mabel's. So, famous horses that most people know: Mr. Ed, who lent us his song for our theme song; Black Beauty, a famous novel; Bucephalus, Alexander the Great's horse; Secretariat and Seabiscuit were race horses that also made their way into popular culture with books and movies. And then the Budweiser Clydesdales that everybody knows well. Let's see, does anybody have any questions? Keep going? Okay, all right. Feel like I'm all alone out here, so. Okay, so jobs for horses. Horses really love to work. I've heard it said that it seems as though humans and horses made some kind of agreement at some point that they would help each other, and it really does seem to be true. I'm still continually amazed at how willing they are to do what we ask them to do. And it's just really beautiful to watch them do their jobs. So some common jobs would be on cattle ranches. So this is actually a picture of my uncle's ranch out in Texas. The cowboys find that the cattle respond much better to horses than ATVs. So they still work, even though there's other options available. The horse just seems to be the best way. Mounted police units are sort of returning. There's more of those now. My brother's in law enforcement, and he was saying that it's amazing how a police car can drive into a crowd with lights flashing and sirens blaring and no one really moves, but you get 4 or 5 horses walking side by side and that crowd will disperse pretty fast. It's also really good for public relations. Children really like horses and are drawn to horses. It helps make police officers more approachable. So again, you're starting to see a rise in the number of police units, mounted police units in big cities. Tourism, a lot of people like to go on trail rides on vacation. Apparently there's some pretty amazing rides in exotic places. People always ask me if I have been on those rides, but I do not choose to ride horses on vacation since I ride horses all the time. So it's not my chosen vacation, but I've heard that there are really amazing options out there. Therapeutic riding programs is another area that horses are really being used more and more. It's pretty amazing to see what they can do, helping people with cognitive, physical, emotional, social issues. It helps patients with balance, core strength, range of motion, coordination, motor skills, sensory integration. And there's just something really therapeutic about being around horses. I tell people they're great listeners, and not just because they can't talk back, but they really do listen. It's really neat to see them sort of just interpret you and see what kind of mood you're in and what you need them to be for you. So it's a really great job for the horses. And then of course, sport horses. So some,
Megan,
that?
can I interrupt you for a moment? So
Yeah.
what determines what a horse's job is? Is it mostly about like circumstance, like where they're born or their breed? Or is it really the personality of the horse, then they get placed?
So I would say there's definitely certain breeds that are gonna be filtered into different jobs. So the quarter horse is who's gonna find themselves on a cattle ranch. The thoroughbred's gonna be a racehorse. A lot of the draft horses will be in the therapeutic riding programs. It is obviously a lot of who breeds them, who buys them. Ultimately, their owners get to decide what they do. But again, there's definitely certain breeds that are going to be more geared towards certain activities, and they're just going to be more successful in those activities. And so that, you know, the people in the industry are going to get the horses of that certain breed that they'll be the most successful. Does that answer your question?
Because of their personality traits or size or?
All the above, definitely. The physical attributes are really important. You know, you're not gonna get a miniature horse to pull your plow, and you're not gonna, you know, want to have a draft horse herding your cattle. They're gonna be too slow. But personality is huge as well. So with the horses that I work with, they're European warm bloods, and they can do a lot of different things. They sort of have the strength and the calmness of a draft horse, but they've got the energy and the eagerness of a thoroughbred. And so you can kind of let them pick their jobs. When they're, when I get into the training of horses, when they're 4, 5, and 6, you can start to see some of them, when you take them to a jump, they're going to prick their ears up and take you to it. Others are going to kind of put their ears out to the side and not seem as interested. So, you know, maybe that's a horse that you're going to let do dressage instead of the jumping. Again, I'll explain those different things later on, but I would say it's as much the personality as the physical attributes, because just because they have the physical traits they need, it doesn't mean they're gonna excel. Just like humans, right? You can take one athlete that is the same as another, and one's gonna be in the NFL and one's not gonna make it. You know, it's how hard they want to work, if they enjoy it. All those are gonna be part of the puzzle. Okay, and that was great. Please stop me, because I tend to get going pretty fast. So if you have a sport horse, there are lots of different industries, lots of different disciplines within the sport horse industry. So racing is well known and definitely probably the biggest high value sport. And there's thoroughbred racing, quarter horse racing, harness racing, steeplechase. The most expensive horse ever sold was a thoroughbred racehorse that was sold for $70 million. So definitely a lot of money in that sport. Rodeo, the horse sports in rodeo would be the barrel racing, bronc riding, and team penning with the cattle. Polo is interesting in that it's a team sport, so there's not a lot of sports where you have a lot of horses on the field at the same time. And then saddle seat is an English event where the horses are judged based on the expressiveness of their gaits. Like I was saying before, you can tell the horses in these pictures are very, very different, right? This is your sports car, tall, thin, fast. This is a big, thick horse, but athletic. These are little guys that can turn on a dime. And then this is a very elegant, fancy, high-stepping horse. This horse is not going to go very fast. He's going to run the other direction if he sees a cow and have a complete heart attack if someone gallops at him with a mallet in their hand. So, you know, they each have their calling, and they're trained to do their job. In addition to those sports, there are the Olympic sports. Equestrian is unique in the Olympics in that it's the only event where men and women will compete equally against each other. And the United States is tied with Germany for the most all-time medals in the Olympics with 52. So the three equestrian sports in the Olympics are dressage, which is here. It's sort of described as ballet on horseback. The horse and rider are going to perform a series of movements and be judged on their ability to execute those movements. Show jumping, which is the sport that I compete in now, is the horses are going to jump over a course of jumps. And if they hit the jump, it's going to fall down, which gives you a penalty, or if they obviously refuse to jump. And the third Olympic sport is called eventing. This is what I did in the Junior Olympics. So it's a three-phase event. It has both the dressage and the show jumping at a little bit of a lower level than these events would have on their own. But the third phase is this cross country where you're going to gallop 8 to 10 minutes over all types of terrain, jumping solid jumps into water, over ditches, up and down banks. This is, if you can tell, that's water. So that horse is jumping over this log, landing in water, going to gallop through the water and jump their way out. So again, they have to do these two phases too. So they have to have a lot of balance and obedience, but then they have to be really brave to jump those jumps, because as they're approaching that jump, that horse doesn't know there's water on the other side. He has to leave the ground before he realizes he's landing in that water. So a lot of trust in the rider to do that. And an interesting note, tie to Duke, is Jessica Springsteen, who is Bruce Springsteen's daughter, graduated from Duke in 2014, and she has been chosen to represent the United States in show jumping in Tokyo. So a nice tie to Duke. Patrick always enjoyed getting to stand at the ringside with Bruce Springsteen. Jessica and I are at the same events occasionally. So. In addition to the Olympic sports, there's also something called the World Equestrian Games, which is sort of a world championship specific to equestrian sports. So it has the same three disciplines as the Olympics, but it adds in these other horse sports. So endurance, which is a long distance race where horses are going to cover 50 to 100 miles in a day. Driving, where 1, 2, or 4 horses are going to pull a carriage, and it's another 3-phase event where they're going to do some things in the arena, some things out across the country. Reining is the Western sport in World Equestrian Games, where the horses and rider are going to perform movements in an arena and judged. Their movements are based on ranch horses working with cattle, so it's to judge their ability to turn quickly, stop and go, spin, things you need to do if you're corralling a cow. Vaulting is gymnastics on horses, which has its roots in European circus acts. And then the para-dressage, which is the same as the regular dressage, but it's restricted to riders with various degrees of disability. So it's a Paralympic sport, but they do include it in the World Equestrian Games. So these are held every 4 years on the off cycle of the Olympics. So they started in 1990. In 2010, they were held in the United States for the first time in Lexington, Kentucky. And then actually in 2018, they returned to North Carolina and were held in Tryon, which is Western North Carolina. So that was a really big deal for North Carolina, or horse sports in the North Carolina. So this is their logo. These are the 8 different disciplines represented. And it's a really neat thing. Again, I grew up on a horse farm. I've been competing my whole life, and I had never been to an endurance, driving, reining, vaulting, or para-dressage competition. And I was fortunate enough to go in 2010 to watch and got to see all these different horses. And again, like we were saying before, you could walk down the barn aisle and tell a dressage horse versus a venting horse versus an endurance horse. The dressage and show jumping horses are pretty similar, but each of these others are very, very different. Endurance horses are Arabians. They're going to be little and tiny and be able to be ridden 100 miles in one day. The driving horses have to be big enough to pull a carriage. The reining horses look like ranch horses living out on a cattle farm. They're just all very different. It was really amazing for me to get to see them all in one place at one time. Okay, any questions before that's sort of general horse sports. Now, how do we get there? Okay. So you want to compete in one of those sports. How are you going to get there? So training very much begins at birth. This is our horse Marley. And I was in the stall with him before he could stand. So he was born and I was right there with him, just letting him know that I was going to be a part of his life. I was not something to be scared of. I was there to help him and just be there for him. And then here he is at 2 weeks old, and you probably can't tell, but he already has a little halter on. So again, training starts really early. He's got to learn how to wear a halter and be led, go where I want him to go, which means not always where mom goes. Has to learn to be tied, which is something that's really scary to horses. That's not, they're prey animals, so they want to be free. Their instinct is to be able to run no matter what. And so teaching them that, we're going to protect them. No, there's no coyotes around. You don't have to feel the need to run. Is something that you've got to introduce really early, or else you're going to have to fight it their whole life because it's just their instinct. And then once they know how to tie, then it's just grooming them, bathing them. They've got to go on the trailer. They got to let us get them cleaned up. And they say that you can roughly multiply a horse's age by 3 to sort of understand their human equivalent. So at 1 year old, they're very much basically a toddler, maybe early preschooler. You're just trying to keep them safe and not let them hurt themselves and teach them the daily routine. But by 2 years old, they're basically ready for kindergarten. So this is Marley a couple weeks ago. He's 2 now, he turned 2 in June. And I'm doing some ground exercises with him. And what I'm doing is introducing the commands that I'm going to use when I'm riding him on the ground. So he doesn't, when it is time to ride him, the commands make sense to him, because when I first get on him, it's going to be a whole new world. So it will be nice for him and for me to have some familiarity with what I'm asking him to do. And then once he understands those basic skills, I'm going to introduce the tack that we need. So this is some of my saddles. This is my wall of bridles. These are basically all of my saddles. So they're sort of different sizes. And I use the one that fits the horse best, because again, every horse is a little different. But every horse has its own bridle with a different bit that helps the horse likes the best and helps me communicate with him the best. And so again, this was Marley. He's got his saddle on. I had taken his bridle off so he could have some grass, but he now wears his saddle and bridle, and in the next few weeks, I'll be getting on him. So hopefully you won't see an update in the e-news. I need prayers, but he's a good boy. I think he'll be ready. And again, I mean, he's in kindergarten. I'm going to get on him and walk around a little bit, do that a couple times, and then I'm going to leave him alone for a while and let him grow up a little bit. But it's important while he's this age and his mind is growing and he's pretty receptive to introduce him to what his life is going to be. And it's really important to just follow their feedback. If they're showing you that they're scared, you back off for the day. If they're getting bored, it's ready to introduce something new. It's really good to go at their pace. They are eager learners. They want to be good. They want to do their job. So I always say, ask, don't tell, but don't accept no for an answer. So
what might some of that feedback look like?
So one thing that's really easy with Marley is his eyes get really wide if I've asked something and he doesn't understand. So then I'll instantly back off. If I see his eyes get wide or he starts breathing a little bit heavy, then I've made him nervous. He doesn't understand the question. Time to back off and reapproach. If he's bored, he's going to not look at me. He's going to start eating grass when I'm trying to tell him something. You can just sort of tell they've disengaged. So that's when it's time to push something on, to introduce something a little harder. If he kicks out, then I've made him mad and he felt threatened. So That one's a little bit tricky because he needs to not ever kick out at a human, but I need to recognize that I pushed him too hard. So in that one, like at the bottom there, I say reward good behavior, correct bad decision. So if he kicks out for whatever reason, that was a bad decision, I'm going to correct him for that. But then I'm going to back off, and I'm not going to keep asking what I ask, because he's told me he wasn't ready for that. But I'm going to tell him, don't you kick out at me, because you could really get someone hurt that way. And he's about to have made that connection. It's pretty rare when he kicks out now. But from 1 to 2, it happens a lot. We get a lot of bruises, and I don't let the girls around him because they're still in a I told they're kindergartners, they're still out for temper tantrums at this stage. So you got to always be on guard for sure.
So Megan, what kinds of things are you asking him?
I'm asking him to stand in the cross ties, which is where we groom them, to stand patiently and wait for me to brush him off, put his tack on. He needs to walk out to the arena at my side at the pace that I'm walking. So that's something we do a lot. I will all of a sudden run, and he needs to pick up a trot and keep up with me. And then I'll stop, and he needs to stop too. Because again, that helps with once I get on, and in my sport, I need him to go faster or go slower. I need him to basically read my mind. And so that's something that's really important. And that's something you can do a lot. So if I'm running and walking and stopping, and he's doing it, but looking out to see what the other horses in the field are doing, he's got that exercise. I don't need to do that anymore. And so then I'll do what I was doing in this picture. So here I'm standing in the center and making him circle around me. And you can see he's looking off at the camera. I'm not challenging him enough there. But again, that's working on the speeds, go faster, go slower, turn around. One thing where he used to kick out at me a lot that we've worked on is I'll walk and ask him. So they need to be able to move all 4 legs where I want them to move. So when I walk up to him, he should step away from me with his outside front leg if I walk to his shoulder, or his outside hind leg if I walk up to his hind legs. And a couple of weeks ago, I walked up to his hind legs and asked him to step away with his left hind, and instead he kicked out with his right hind, and I sort of saw my life flash before me. And so again, that was where I instantly, flipped the rope, told him that don't you kick out at me, but I went back to working on the front end again, where he felt less pressured, less like I was attacking him, and then went back to the working on the hind end.
You're training this horse for yourself, right?
I am. So his mother is actually the best horse that we've ever had. It's actually not the gray one. I actually had to do an embryo transfer, which I decided to not go into through this talk because it's complicated, but I had a really, really special horse. And 3 years ago, she got injured, and they thought it was cancer. They thought we were gonna have to put her down. So we very quickly did an embryo transfer so that we could at least have a foal from her before we lost her. And then long story, and thousands of dollars later, it turns out it was not cancer, and she's fine. She's still with us. Marley actually lives with her. But he is sort of our golden child, I would say. So he's very special. And so, yes, I am raising him and training him to be my show horse. I've certainly worked with other horses that once they were then ready to be show horses, we sold them.
Do you do this for other people?
Yes. I try to not do too much with the babies because I do feel like I'm putting my life on the line every day. I really enjoy sort of the 4 to 8 year olds. That's when they're sort of in college and they're really ready to learn a lot. They're fun. They have a lot to learn. There's a lot I can teach them, but they know their manners. The 1, 2, and 3 year olds, they sort of have to be special for me to work with them, especially as I get older, and especially since I have children. Before the girls, I was fearless, but having broken my foot last year and seeing how hard that was on my family for me to be on the disabled list, that was I try not to get hurt for sure. And the babies is definitely, it's easy to get hurt working with young horses. So. Okay, so like I said, usually by the time they're 5 or 6, which again in humans is 15 to 18, they've graduated high school, they're ready to pick their job. And my hope with the ones I work with is that they want to be show jumpers. So this is our horse Louie. who is our top show horse right now. So to be ready to compete, he's going to be ridden 5 or 6 days a week. Fitness is really important for horse and rider. When I was in high school, I started running track and cross country, and I've kept running. And recent years, I've added in some core strengthening. I think one of the nicest things you can do for your horse is to be in shape, because again, they're just really incredible. And if they feel you lose their balance, they will throw themselves off balance to stay under you. And then that throws them off balance. It distracts them from their job. It lets them not be the best they can be. So I try really hard to be fit and be strong and to help them and not have them need to help me. And it really does take a team. The horse has a rider, a trainer. So I have people that come and watch me and let me know what I could do better, and exercises that would help Louis to be better. At the horse shows, we have grooms that help take care of the horses so that we as riders can focus on our jobs. He's got 2 full-time veterinarians that help him with chronic health. And then also if an injury comes up, the farrier, he gets new shoes every 4 to 5 weeks, custom fit. Make sure that he has the balance he needs, his toes are the right length, his feet are the right size. And a physiologist that'll use massage, laser therapy, magnetic therapy, anything if he gets a sore muscle or a strained ligament. We want all of our horses to feel the absolute best they can feel to perform their best. And I think my favorite part about working with horses is every day with every horse is different. They each have really unique personalities. Some days they are just the most eager little learners and they want to do whatever you ask of them. And other days they're just not feeling it. And you've got to find that fine line of helping them to be motivated, but also making them do their job. Some quick examples of how different they can be. So Louis here is just the sweetest horse you could ever meet. He has never met a stranger. He will let anybody pet him and wants everybody to pet him. If anyone's in the barn, he's making noise until someone will come and talk to him. And then we had another horse that was a really good horse, and he and I just weren't clicking. We could not figure out what was going on. And then Patrick actually figured out. He said, "You need to leave him alone." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, he likes his job, he wants to work, and he wants to be left alone. And so I did. I would feed him, I'd put him out in his field, I'd bring him in, I'd ride him, I'd put him away. Wouldn't make a fuss over him, wouldn't go visit him. And we really turned a corner. We've got great results. He became one of my best prize money winners. He just didn't want to be a pet. He wanted to be a professional. And then we have another horse in the barn. When he came to me, the trainer said he has a Dennis the Menace personality. And I just sort of laughed and didn't know what that meant. And oh my goodness, that horse, he will like pretend he's sleeping and you'll go to walk by him. And just when you get by him, he'll thunk you with his nose and like send you across the barn aisle. He pulls all his blankets off the wall. He takes blankets off. Like, I don't know how he does it. I'll come in the morning and his blanket's completely buckled, but on the ground and destroyed. And they're just all very unique, very, lots of personality for sure. Okay, so one of the highlights, how do we get to horse shows? Once we've trained, we're ready to compete. How do we do that? So for the most part, we're going to use a truck and trailer. So this is me and our trailer. It's a pretty standard 36-foot 4-horse head-to-head that I pull with an F350. If we have more than 4 horses going to a show, we'll use a commercial shipper. So this is a tractor trailer that can fit 15 horses and they ride very comfortably there. And then if you need to go across the country or across the other side of the world, you're gonna fly. So these are basically stalls. And so you drive the horse to a special airport that has livestock facilities like JFK or Chicago or Miami. And on the ground, the horses are loaded into these stalls that just look like a normal trailer to them, but then they're lifted into a temperature controlled cargo bay area of a plane. And then these are some horses on the plane. I have not been on a plane with horses, but I'm told that they are like children. They think it's great fun. They know something important is happening. There's a team of veterinarians and grooms that travel with them. They do make sure that they have hay and carrots throughout the trip, so they're chewing, so the ear pressure doesn't get to them. And the planes will take a little bit more of a gradual ascent and descent and wider turns just to help them with balance. But they don't need to be sedated. Horses sleep standing up, and they actually sort of nap all throughout the day. They don't take one long sleep. So it's not a problem for them to, for example, the horses going to Tokyo. So the US horses are they have already flown from JFK to Aachen, Germany. So that was about an 8-hour flight, and they're gonna quarantine there for a bit, make sure that everybody's healthy. And that site's restricted only to Olympic horses. And then from Germany, they're gonna fly to Tokyo, which is gonna be another 12-hour flight. And again, they'll be quarantined there, checked to make sure they're sick, nobody has any viruses, everybody's healthy, hydrated. That's probably the biggest complication with any travel with horses is the hydration. It's tough to keep water in front of them, and they can get dehydrated pretty quickly. So if anybody does show signs of dehydration and doesn't want to take a drink, the proverbial, you can leave a horse to water but not make them drink. They have IV hydration for them. All right. And then lastly, at the shows. So in show jumping, we usually do 3 to 4 classes a show with 1 class each day. So I typically would go to the shows on Tuesday or Wednesday and then show Thursday through Sunday. And there's 2 rounds. So the first round, you jump the jumps. And if you're able to complete that course clear without any penalties, then you advance to the second round. And in that round, you go as fast as you can go without knocking any jumps down, because the fastest one to complete that round will win. And we are competing for ribbons and prize money. So usually first place will get a third of the prize money, and then it trickles down to 7th and 8th place, usually just get back their entry fee. And there's anywhere from 20 to 40 in a class, just depending on the show and the level. So, you know, you got to play that game of go as fast as you can, but if you knock a jump down, you might not get anything. So I often tell people that the horses are my teammate because we're competing and trying to win. They're my business partner because the better we do, the better the business checking account looks. And they really are my friends. We spend a lot of time together. We take care of each other. We both want to come home at the end of the day without any injuries. So it's definitely a very unique and close relationship with the horses.
Is there a typical entry fee for these type of competitions, or does it vary quite a bit?
It really varies. So at your local show, it's going to be $20 a class, and there's going to be no prize money. You get up to $1 million class, and you're going to have a $1,500 entry fee. So again, I mean, you're going to spend $1,500 and maybe walk away with nothing, but in $1 million class, first place is going to get $300,000. So those are rare. There's not many $1 million show jumping classes. There are quite a bit of $100,000 and $200,000 classes. That is not the level I'm at. I have done some $25,000 classes. So, and that was before the girls, I think. I don't think I've done that since Mabel was born. It takes a lot of work and a lot of travel. I used to be on the road almost 40 weeks of the year. We'd go as far north as Lake Placid, New York, and all the way down to Florida. These horses and I would spend a lot of time on the road. So now I'm closer to home, staying in mostly North Carolina and Virginia, and you know, just doing a little bit of the smaller shows. And I think next I have, so I think probably the best thing is for you to see it in action. So this is me and Louie competing in Tryon. So this is Western North Carolina, and this is a 1.30 meter class. So these jumps are 4'3" tall, and they're measured in meters because this sport has its base in Europe. So I have to use European measurement. But so I have walked this course, and I know where the jumps are and what order I'm supposed to jump them, how many strides he's supposed to take between all of them. But Louis has not. He has not been in this arena. This is all a surprise to him. So my job is to tell him where to go, how fast he should go, what gives him the best chance of jumping the jumps as clear without knocking any down. He puts in a huge effort here. So the penalties are if you knock a jump, that's 4 faults. If he refuses to jump a jump, there's faults, 4 faults as well. And then there is a time limit. So if I were to go over the time allowed, I'm going to get penalized, a penalty for every second. And so this next jump here is called a Liverpool. So there's water underneath the jump, and then the Liverpool gets him a little distracted. So here I've got to ride a little strong, and that's called an in and out. So there's 2 jumps with only 1 stride between the 2 of them. And this is a little bit of a careful jump. So I slow him down here, make sure he gets his eye on it, doesn't knock that jump down, and then a set number of strides to the last jump. So Louis and I completed that course clear without any penalties. So we're able to advance to the next round, which is called the jump off. And it depends on the class. For some shows, everyone in the class will jump the first round and go back to the barn. And then everyone comes back for the jump off that jumped clear. At this show, it was an immediate jump off. And so here I've just finished the first round. So I'm letting Louis catch his breath. And I'm reviewing the course because it's a little bit tricky. You have to go into the ring knowing both courses, and you'll see I'll jump some of the same jumps, some different jumps. I'm going to jump 1 jump in the opposite direction. So like I said, I'm letting him catch his breath while I go through the course in my head. And now I've got to play the game of, I want to go as fast as I can. The faster I go, the better I'm going to place. But if I go so fast that he knocks a jump down, I'm going to be behind all of the people that didn't knock a jump down. But you'll be able to see right here, I kick it up a gear. Here I do a nice inside turn. So I turned inside that purple jump to get back to this jump, because obviously the shorter distance you take between the jumps, the faster you're going to be. The winner in this class went inside that joker jump to this jump, but it was the Liverpool, so I didn't want that to surprise Louis. I leave a stride out here, so 1 less step for him to take, which makes me go faster. This was a tough inside turn to a really big jump. I was really proud of his effort there. And this is the jump that I jumped towards the camera in the first round. There I take a little slice angle across it to be faster, and then here I'm taking a gallop home. A lot of times we sort of say you take a shot at the last to go pretty fast and hope they leave it up, which he did. So that was good enough for 3rd place at that particular show.
Are you communicating with him by talking and the reins, or just with the reins?
A little bit. Mostly my leg, my seat, and my reins are the 3 primary aids. You certainly can give him a little cluck, like for an extra effort. I tell people, if you hear me talking to him, the wheels are off the wagon. Like if I'm saying, whoa, 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 like he is not listening, we are going too fast. Or if I say up, 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 he's not paying attention, we're probably gonna knock that jump down. So you certainly can use your voice. Like I said, it's sort of a last resort, but a cluck, I use that all the time. And then your seat, you communicate a lot with how you sit with them. I really teach my horses, if I lift my weight off their back, I want them to speed up. If I'm sitting in the saddle, I want them to slow down. The more you can use your weight and your seat, the less you can use the bridle, the faster and less distracted they're going to be. So if I pull on the reins and he throws his head up because I pulled on the reins, he's taking his eye off the jump, which makes him less likely to clear the jump. And it's amazing. They do free jumping with horses. Well, they'll let them just jump jumps without a rider. And it's amazing what they can do without us on them. So I really keep that in mind, that the least I can do, the better off he's going to be. I just need to tell him where to go and give him the best pace. If I can just stay out of his way, he's going to just jump over the moon for me. That's really my philosophy. I try to stay out of their way and just give them the help that they need. And this is actually Marley's mom. So this is Greta. We were at an indoor event outside of Washington, D.C. She was a really great horse. And like I said, we still have her. She's 21 this year. And since she isn't the one that actually had Marley, she gets to live with Marley. And I'm hoping she's teaching him all kind of good things, all the things that she used to know.
That's awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Megan?
I can stop sharing. There we go. Now I think I can see everybody.
What does a typical day at your house look like?
Sure, yeah. I was going to include that. So we feed the horses at 7 a.m. Most of these horses we keep in at night. So they're in their barn. We feed them, and then they get to go outside to their field. So each horse has about a 2-acre field here. And the retired horses go out with their friends. The show horses go out by themselves so that they don't get hurt. And the show horses really, they have a pretty structured life. We really want them focused on their job. The babies and the retired horses, they're just supposed to enjoy life. So the old guys have friends, the babies have mentors, the show horses focus. So we feed at 7, they go out in their field, get to spend a couple hours outside just being horses while we clean the barn, refill the water buckets, put new bedding in the stalls, get the barn cleaned up. Then they'll come in. It takes about an hour and a half per horse to ride. By the time you bring them in, clean them up, practice in the ring, take them in, clean them up, put them away. And then they get hay throughout the day once they're back in their stall. And then we give them their evening meal around 4 p.m. And then I go inside, take a break, get dinner for the girls and for us, and get the girls to bed. And then around 9 p.m. I go back out, clean all the stalls again, give them fresh water, give them more hay, make sure that everybody's healthy. Medication I do at 9 p.m. at night so that they have it for the night. So it's all day.
You have help.
Yes, I do. So, and I pretty much always have. I think once we got up to 4 or 5 horses, I had help. And then certainly since the girls have been born, I have help. So, when I need to run the girls to school, there's someone here to help me clean the stalls and make sure that they're where they need to be. So.
How physically demanding is it for you to do a course like you showed us the video? So are you breathing as heavy as the horses after the circuit?
Probably not quite as hard, but you are definitely breathing. I mean, I typically try to say in 5K fitness, just to relate it to a runner. If I can't easily run a 5K, I'm going to be really winded at the end of that course. And it also depends on the horse, right? So the Dennis the Menace horse, interestingly, is just a breeze to ride. When I finish a course on him, I could talk to you like I'm talking right now. Greta, who is the really great horse, I mean, I would almost be dry heaving when I would be done riding her. She was just so powerful, and she loved her job. And so I mean, there's courses where she's about to jump the wrong jump backwards, and I'm like pulling her off of it because she just saw a jump and wanted to go to it. So it depends a lot on the horse, but it's definitely physically demanding. Like I said, those hay bales are 40 to 50 pounds, and I'm stacking 75 of them a day, once or twice a month. The grain is 50 pounds a bag. The shavings are 40 pounds a bag. So there's a lot of lifting and a lot of fitness. You're lifting saddles, throwing your leg over. So it is pretty physically demanding. You got to be in shape.
But that keeps you in shape, or helps to keep you in shape.
Yes, definitely.
So Megan, if you were going to do this like you do for a living, would you say that most of your income comes from being in as many trials as you could and having prize money, or would it be training, boarding, things like that for other people, or a combination?
Sure. Yeah, so you really have to sort of choose your focus there. If you want to earn your living off prize money, you really have to focus on that. So that was what I did before the girls were born, as I was on the road and I was competing, and my focus was on the horses that I was riding. I realized I wouldn't be able to travel as much with the girls. And so I then turned to training. And it's a more reliable source of income. I sort of have my group of clients that I know how many lessons I'm going to teach, how many rides they want me to put on their horses, training rides. I get paid to help them, coach them at the shows. So it is hard to do both. I mean, I like it. I still have Louis and I train him, and I sort of consider him my marketing, right? So when I go in and have a good round on Louis, that's not as important to the checking account as people standing at the gate saying, wow, she rides well. I think I'd like her to teach me. You really do have to it's hard to be at the top of both. It's hard to have clients and ride the best you can ride at the highest level.
How old you were when you rode a horse?
Oh goodness. So I think my mom put me in front of her when I was probably 4 months old. I would say I started taking lessons when I was 6 years old. So
Did your mother show horses also?
yes.
Not
so
only train, but she was competing also.
She did. Yes, she did what I do basically. She was really focused on teaching children. She had been a school teacher out of college. And so she really enjoyed teaching children, and she had ridden herself in high school. And so she sort of merged her two interests of teaching children and horses and taught riding lessons. But she would teach riding lessons during the week and then go to horse shows with me on the weekends.
Mm.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yes.
Go for it, Mabel.
Mabel?
So how do you feel when you first started riding?
I was like a fish to water when I started riding. I just loved it, and I love the horses, and I couldn't really imagine doing anything else.
Greg?
Not like me. I'm still trying, but I can't ride completely.
You're learning. You're doing great.
Megan, I noticed that you mentioned rewards and corrections. When you're training a horse, it's what's rewarding for a horse to get that horse to repeat the behavior that you want to be repeated, and what corrections do you use to sort of tamp down on certain behaviors?
Sure. So on the ground, the reward would just be a pet, a scratch, or even a treat. And then the punishment, again, they're prey animals. So I just sort of like walk at them really fast, or I'll raise my hands at them, and they don't like that. So that's enough of a punishment. Once you're riding, again, the reward is a pet, talking to them. Again, it just really, I don't quite understand how they're so willing to do what we want them to do. They seem to be really happy that I'm happy with what they're doing. And then the punishment mostly would be a kick or a hard pull on the reins. If they're really disobedient, we will carry a whip and use that. But I very rarely use my whip. I mean, people ask me all the time why I even carry it, because I just don't like to use it at all. It's not my personality. So I sort of don't understand why they do anything we ask of them. So I'm always grateful. And on the days they don't want to participate, I sort of am understanding. And it's served me well. I worry that I'm going to run into the wrong horse sometime that's going to take advantage of that, but I just haven't. They're just really amazing creatures, and they really respond well to that. I think I've been fortunate enough to have some horses that have had some less caring situations, and they've come to me, and I'm able to get them to do a little bit more just by taking it slow and letting them come around at their own time. So they've been really rewarding for me that way.
That is amazing. It's so interesting. We had a special little game planned, but
Yeah, I'm thinking that we'll just put it in the e-news. So if anyone wants to do some horse trivia, we can just have it in the e-news and people can do it there. What do you think, Elizabeth?
what do you mean, put it in the e-news? Oh, they can do it, yeah, themselves.
They can do it on their own time.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. If nobody else has any more questions, just thank you so much, Megan. It was incredibly interesting. I
It
learned
was a
so
great talk you gave,
Yeah.
Megan.
I learned
Very
so much. And Kate will end the event now with a musical meditation by John Rutter, performed by the Cambridge Singers. Maybe.
Maybe. Sorry, it takes a while.
Or not.
Things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, He made
Thank you,
Beautiful.
everybody, for joining us.
Thank
you
you.
again, Megan. It was wonderful.
That was great.
Wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you all for being here.
Yes, great.
That was great.
If you can, join us on July 25th for baking brioche buns with our very own Mel Snyder. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.